My dear Frodo, you asked me once if I had told you everything there was to know about my adventures. Well, I can honestly say I have told you the truth. I may not have told you all of it.
You're all probably aware of a debate which has been raging recently in the press and the internet, which we'll call, for the purpose of argument, the what the frames per second debate, WTFPS. If you're not up to speed, here's the short version. Cinema Convention, they showed footage from The Hobbit, Peter Jackson's eagerly awaited sequel to The Lord of the Rings. And what happened was it's been shot in 48 frames per second. This is twice as fast as the usual cinema projection speed. The idea is it gives you greater clarity, will overcome some of the problems of eye strain that 3D involves. And the audience response was mixed. And when I say mixed, I mean some people didn't like it and some people really didn't like it. The criticisms have been, it looks too real. It doesn't look like a movie. The sets look like sets. The actors look like actors wearing makeup. It looks like behind the scenes footage. It looks like a television soap opera. It is not cinematic. Now, Peter Jackson, the director, has said, well, of course, we expected that kind of response. It will take a while to adjust to the extraordinary experience that is 48 frames per second. And, of course, advanced frame rates are nothing new. Douglas Trumbull, who directed one of my favourite films ever, Silent Running, greatest science fiction movie ever made, as far as I'm concerned, has long been experimenting with advanced frame rates. His show scan system, which has been around for ages, shows at 60 frames per second. And maybe it is the future, maybe it isn't. Who knows? I'll wait until I see the film. I'm also very, very aware that I have a reputation of being someone who's a bit of a Luddite about 3D. I did a blog recently saying that my anxieties about 3D were probably no different from people saying, oh, that colour's never going to catch on, that sound's never going to catch on, what's with these newfangled moving pictures? And of course, it's not just cinema in which this happens. I mean, musicians will know that people say valve amps sound better than transistor amps. Transistor amps sound too bright and too clean. Anyone who's got a vinyl record collection will have been familiar with the debate about CDs. CDs, they're digital, they don't have any of the warmth of vinyl. I have a huge 80s video collection. When DVDs came along, well, they're not as good. They're not as good. Look, the boxes are small, you don't have the lovely gatefold sleeves. Then along comes Blu-ray. Suddenly, DVD becomes something to treasure because Blu-ray, it looks too brittle, it looks too harsh. And similarly in the cinema, all that digital projection, that will never give you any of the warmth of celluloid. It would never have happened with 35mm. This has always happened. I'm very aware of it. I'm very aware that cinema is a continuum, and every time we have a technological development, there will be a certain amount of resistance to it. As far as 48 frames per second is concerned, let's wait and see. But while everyone has been busy discussing the technological future of cinema, the more important question has somehow been brushed under the carpet. Was the footage of The Hobbit any good? Well, people have been unable to answer that for one very simple reason. They haven't seen the whole film. It's impossible to judge any movie on the basis of an excerpt of footage. I was recently sent an invitation to see footage from Ridley Scott's Prometheus. I would rather gouge my eye out with a spoon than see a small section of Prometheus. Why? Because I want to see the film from the beginning to the end, in whatever format the director prefers, whether it's 3D, whether it's 2D, whether it's colour, whether it's black and white, whether it's 48 frames or 24 frames, or digital or celluloid, it doesn't matter, but I want to see it from the beginning to the end. And yet somehow we have all become completely obsessed with and happy with the idea that it is possible to make judgments on the basis of 10 minutes of test footage. I once queued in the Cannes Film Festival to see excerpts from Michael Bay's unfinished Armageddon. I have never in my life experienced a more pointless moment than standing in a queue thinking, I don't like Michael Bay and he hasn't finished the film, what am I queuing up for? And yet somehow we have all got used to this idea that this is perfectly rational. See 10 minutes of a film, make a judgment. Journalists are pretty much demanded nowadays to write reviews of films that they haven't seen because they're not finished. Meanwhile, on the internet, bloggers are writing reviews of scripts of films that haven't been finished, only to discover that those scripts aren't actually the scripts of the films at all. Enough is enough. Let's take cinema seriously enough to say we don't want to see the movie until we can see the movie all the way through. You know, being desperate to see 10 minutes of a film doesn't make you a fan, it makes you a fool. If you love cinema, then respect cinema enough to say, I will see the film when it is done, in whatever format it's meant to be done in, but from beginning to end in a single sitting. Enough with the 10 minutes. What do you think would have happened if Orson Welles had called the press in and said, I've got Citizen Kane, well, here's 10 minutes of it? People would have thought it was a film of newsreel. Enough is enough, from beginning to end, or nothing.